Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. So what now? If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, what now? What is Bitcoin going to do? Well, recently I did put out some videos to talk about the bearish scenario. And while it is important to always plan for the worst case scenario, it's also nice to, in general, be optimistic about where the price of Bitcoin is headed. As we've said before, hope for the best, plan for the worst. I've outlined to you what I think is the worst case scenario for Bitcoin in a prior video. So I thought it would also be prudent to show a different perspective, which really looks a lot better. Okay, so we're going to use this video to talk about that. Now, one of the things I've mentioned before is that I would not anticipate a major mania phase for Bitcoin until later on in 2022, like late 2022 at the earliest, or 2023. Okay, now this has been my thesis since 2019. It has not changed. I did not change it in 2021, and it still has not changed today. So I just want to continue on thinking that there is a chance it could play out. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. They're saying, yeah, I can't play out. And look, it's true. It might not play out. I don't want to give anyone the impression that I know for a fact what's going to happen in the market, because again, I don't. But I did want to at least give you your daily dose of hopium. And so what we're going to do is we're gonna go back to the same chart we've looked at before. We're going to look at Bitcoin's market cycles. And really, I think the thing we're going to focus in on is not looking at it on a logarithmic scale, but looking at it on a linear scale. And this is what I really want to talk about, okay? So, we've made this video before, but I feel like now would probably be a good time to talk about it again. Let's suppose you lived through cycle one, which a lot of people did not, but suppose that you did. And this is what you saw. It went straight up, and then it came crashing back down. Now, I watched this happen. I was not invested in the market, unfortunately. Okay, even if I had been, I probably would have watched it go up and come straight back down, because that's what happened in 2013. Maybe I would have learned my lesson over here and hadn't carried out that lesson over here, but it is what it is, right? And you watched this go up, and you watched it come down. Now, suppose during the next cycle, you assumed that we had to do the same thing on the same time frame. So suppose you thought, okay, well, Bitcoin went up at around this point in the first cycle, so therefore it has to go up and do this parabolic rally in the second cycle during the same time frame as measured from the market cycle bottom. If you had assumed that and you lost faith at that point, you would have missed out on what came later. You would have just missed out on it because you weren't patient and because you decided, oh, well, it didn't happen during the same time frame as the first one, therefore, it doesn't, it's not going to. So you would have missed out right here. You would have sold. And what's interesting is if you had sold right there on a logarithmic scale, it looks a little bit different. I mean, you would have seen some type of gain here. It's not like you wouldn't have seen anything. It would have gone up some, but compared to what was coming, it was, who really cares, right? Like, no one's going to get out of bed for this small move if you knew this was going to come later. And then during the third cycle, if you had assumed that we had to have a major parabolic rally during the same time frame as measured from market cycle bottom as the second cycle, you would have sold right here, the yellow line. Look at the yellow line. It was lower than the current one, the current line that we're in at the time. You would have sold here. And you would have sold before that happened. It's just a fact, right? If you had assumed the same time frame had to take place. Well, now we're in cycle 4, my friends. And I understand there's a lot of arguments right now over this cycle stuff. And look, we'll see what happens. But I will point this out one more time for those sitting in the back row. If you assumed during cycle 4 that the mania phase, the final mania phase, had to occur during the same time frame as it did during the last cycle, The thesis is that you would have missed out on what came after it. Okay? Now, keep in mind, the Mania phase, the final peak, as measured from this one, was an extra 471 days out. For this one, it was an extra 331 days out. So, with that in mind, I've said many times, no parabolic rally in Q4 2021, no parabolic rally in Q1 2022, probably not a parabolic rally in Q2 2022, but hey, you never know, right? As time goes on, it becomes an increasing probability that you could see one as time goes on. But I would still lean towards really seeing that later on later on in time, because the part of the issue right now is that we are still in a downtrend and we need to break that. And once we break that, we still then have to go up. We have to fight all these resistance levels at 40K, at 50K, at 60K, at 70K. And that's going to take some time. This is the best case scenario, right? Is that we are able to come out of this without having to go down into a year-long bear market or something. It's still going to take a long time. So even if it does play out, you can't expect it to happen in Q1. Like, you can't expect this parabolic rally to happen in Q1. You have to be patient. So what if the next one is a few hundred days out? It could be the end of 2022. It could be 2023 for all we know. But the moral of the story is that when you look at market cycle ROI, if you assumed that the parabolic rally had to occur during the same time as the prior cycle, you would have missed out on what came next, okay? And that's the point of this video. I will put in the disclaimer, this is not financial advice. At the end of the day, I don't have any idea what's going to happen. This is just dubious speculation at best. I can easily get things wrong. I did not see the drop from 69K to 33K coming, so you take that, pencil that in your notebook and remember that. So it's certainly, I certainly don't claim to know what's going to happen. And what's also interesting is people keep talking about, well, what's the target? And it's funny because, like if it goes to 30K, like whatever it does over here, if this is what's going to come later, right? Of course it's a big if, right? But if it is, does it really matter what happens in this period, right? That's the thing. It's not like in 2012, 2013, you don't really care what happened over here. You just looked at what came after it. In the same way, if you line up that peak with the prior cycle, it's not like we really cared about what happened in this little yellow squiggly thing. All you notice is what came after it. So the idea follows that if there is a parabolic rally to come later on, meaning like, let's say end of the year 2022, maybe 2023, if it's going to come later on, then it's sort of silly worrying about what happens over here, because it's like, who really cares? That's generally the idea. If it goes to 30K and then rebounds and then moves higher, doesn't matter. If it goes to 25K, or furthermore, if it goes to 20K and then instantly rebounds, in just a couple months, does it really matter? I think the distinguishing factor is if it goes to these lower prices and we have to spend a long time there, meaning we have to go down and spend a year similar to 2018 and similar to 2014, then at that point, you have to consider it a different cycle. Okay, so that has been a question I have received. But if that doesn't happen and we don't have to spend a prolonged period of time at lower prices and we continue just playing in the sandbox for a while, then why does it matter if we still have this idea that we could see a parabolic rally happen down the road, and everything we've experienced so far this market cycle for Bitcoin is nothing more than noise. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. We also do have the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.